in the United States. And I think it's long since time that we stop them behaving badly. All right, next slide. Oh, that one, go on. That happens to be going on in England. Go forward. That's there's 85 Sharia courts in England. They are dead men walking over there. They didn't go. Okay, stop right there. All right, now I'm going to go switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to go backwards to the Muslim Brotherhood, the start of it. At the end of World War I, a fellow named Kemal Ataturk decided that it was long since time that Turkey would become a secular nation. He was certainly successful in 1925. He brought it all down. He became the first president of Turkey. And the reason this was so important to us, historically, very important to us, is that when he did that, he took down the shreds of the last remaining caliphate in the world, certainly in the Islamic world. How many of you know what a caliphate is? Thank you. It's the Ummah. It's the Islamic world. The caliph was the one, a caliph is a combination of a president and a pastor. He was taken down, and oh, by the way, you guys would probably recognize this last shreds of the caliphate as the Ottoman Empire, which is about as much as you ever hear about Islamic history when you're in school, period. But what it did was leave, when Ataturk succeeded, was leave millions of Muslims without a leader, without a ruler, and basically without a home. Because that was the center. They always prayed in Mecca, but the Turkish caliphate was absolutely where they were leading, getting their orders, getting their marching orders, where the fatwas came from, you name it. And they didn't have anywhere to turn to. So in 1928, along comes the guy named, named Hassan al-Banna. Hassan al-Banna was a professor at the Al-Azhar University in Cairo. Everybody here know what's going on in Cairo right now? And has been for the last, since January? What?
Democracy.
Oh, democracy, absolutely. No question about it.
One vote, one time.
One man, one vote, one time is what's going on over there. And they've now used it up. That's the end of their one vote. Anyway, I've lost this. You just blew my mind. Anyway, what Hassan al-Banna said was, we need to get together, us Muslims, and determine our own fate, some way to reestablish the caliphate and to find a caliph. This was in 1928. What year is this? 2011. 83 years later, they've done it. They have now been successful. The Muslim Brotherhood in taking over Egypt and really organizing the Middle Eastern Islamic nations. All of those eruptions, except for the very first one in Tunisia, have been designed. The plan is that the Muslim Brotherhood will take down the tin pot dictators, as I call them. What they are is not Sharia compliant enough. They want to make their own money. They want to get money from the United States. They want to play patty cake with any of the other worlds. That's not acceptable to the Muslim Brotherhood, so therefore we're having all these revolutions over there to toss off what is essentially better guys than the one they're going to replace them. Egypt is a severe danger to Israel right now, as of course is Iran. But I got a little ahead of myself there. The Hassan al-Banna formed what's known then as the Muslim Brothers. And they wrote of themselves a creed. And the creed says, you can't read it, Allah is our objective, God. The Quran is our law, which would be Sharia because it came from the Quran. The Prophet is our... Can you scroll that up? You can't. Okay. Allah is our objective, the Quran is our law, the Prophet is our leader, which is Muhammad, Jihad is our way, which means fighting till death, and death for Allah, our highest aspiration. How many of you would like to get up every morning and say to yourself, okay, you have to die or kill somebody today?
Yeah.
That's what it's about. If you're really, truly jihadist, fighting the way you're supposed to be doing it, that's your creed. And it's still true today. The Muslim Brotherhood has grown up, and it is all over the world. The second fellow who came along down here is Saeed Qutb. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the fact. Hassan al-Banna was assassinated in 1949. Could be 59. I think it's 49. And at that time, again, they were leaderless, and along came this fellow named Saeed Qutb, who wrote a book called Milestones. Milestones is, without a doubt, a beautiful book. It's all about why you should be a Muslim. It's all about why Islam is the best possible way to live your life. If I had absolutely no other roots in anything, or I had no belief system and hadn't been given one, I'd fall for that book. It's that good. But it's also the basis of the modern Muslim Brotherhood. It's the rules that's the guiding structure for how it's set up today. Qutb was executed by the state of Egypt in the 1960s for doing exactly what they've finally done. They've finally overthrown the Egyptian government, right? They started that in 1928. So in 1960s he was executed for it, but not before. The first of the Muslim Brothers came to the United States in the 60s and settled in Indiana, Michigan, and Illinois. Anybody ever heard the term Dearborn? Michigan? Dearbornistan, actually. It is, not anymore, not anymore. And they began setting up what I call the little Ikhwans. Muslim brothers, Muslim al-Mulamin, means Muslim brothers. And that, I'm sorry, Ikhwan means that. So I tend to refer to, the next slide please, a whole bunch of organizations that are fronts for the Muslim Brotherhood. Obviously the top one is very important. It's the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood. How peaceful does it look with those two swords? Not all. They're telling you right here with their icons what they are. The one up in the top corner, you can't read it, is the North American Islamic Trust. That is the Saudi bankers for the mosques in the United States. There's many others on here. How many of you have heard of CARE? Yeah. That's the most famous one because they're the lawfare. They're the mouthpieces for Islam. And they're Palestinian, by the way. This one down here with the lady screaming, MSA, the Muslim Students Association. How many of you have heard of that? They are the foot soldiers for the spread of Islam, militant Islam even, as far as I'm concerned, in our colleges, schools, and universities. Michelle Malkin wrote a little blurb in the front of a book written by Eric Stackelbeck called The Terrorist Next Door. She described the Muslim Students Association as a lethal stew of hate that festers in our schools, colleges, and universities. That woman in that picture is screaming, "Go back to the ovens, Jews." She was a Muslim student protester in Fort Lauderdale, December 2008. Don't tell me they're peaceful even here.
What happened to hate speech?
Oh, it's not for them, it's only for us. Completely one-sided. I'll go back to some of these later if we need to, but ISNA, ICNA, MSA, CARE, Muslim Public Affairs Council, there's hundreds of them in the United States. You trip over them at this point. Go to the next one. Fast forward to 1995. 1960s when they first came here, 1995, a little furniture store was raided in our little town of Richardson, Texas, called the Holy Land Foundation. That trial became the biggest trial yet. Hopefully it's not the last, but I think it might be. Terrorist funding case in the United States. All of the leaders were eventually put in prison for it. Osama, the #1 guy, was 65 years in prison for sending money, funneling money to Hamas. CARE is Hamas. Along with the particular people in the Holy Land Foundation being convicted, all of the little icons that you saw up there, the little icons Ikhwans were also listed as unindicted co-conspirators to the Holy Land Foundation trial. They are illegal to be working here on the face of it. Guess who won't let them have the trials that they must have in order to make sure that they stop working in the United States? Eric Holder from Barack Obama, absolutely. The judge in Texas was fit to be tied that he couldn't go on and do those. This is traitorism behavior. One of the reasons that it took from 1995 to 2008 to bring that trial to fruition was the amount of evidence that the feds were finding that had to do with this thing called the Muslim Brotherhood. They really didn't know what it was until they discovered pages and pages and pages, huge millions of words having to do with exactly what the Muslim Brotherhood wanted to do within and to the United States. 2 paragraphs of all of that sum it up. The Muslim Brotherhood must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands. Who the heck is by their hands? Us, our media, our clergy, our helpers, anybody who says Islam is great. We shouldn't be fighting it, and tells you how wonderful it is. They're working with our people and the hands of the believers so that the United States is eliminated and Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions. That was said by Muhammad Akram, May 22nd, 1991, 10 years before the Twin Towers came down. Absolutely been here a long time. That's sedition, guys. Right there. It's calling for the downfall of the United States. Omar Ahmad, who's the founder of U.S. CARE, CARE really is Hamas doing business in the United States, said Islam isn't in America to be equal to any other faith, but to become dominant. Not just be here, guys, take over. The Quran should be the highest authority in America and Islam the only accepted religion on earth. What does that sound? How much clearer can they be about what they're doing in the Muslim Brotherhood? And you can't be clearer than that. But we still have people saying, no, no. And I'll get to that in a minute. I'll go one more. Stop. During the Holy Land Foundation trial, the feds put this particular little graphic up, which is very clear. The Muslim Brotherhood is right in there in the nexus of the spider web, and it's connected to all of the other little Ikhwans, and of course, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, Palestine Islamic Jihad, you name it, the guns, the shooters, and the stealth jihadists. They are the organization that's running the Muslims in this country. I want you to imagine now, that was done in 2008, I want you to imagine now, just take that and blow it up to about 2,000 other little connections that they've got in the United States. They are literally in virtually every city, county, state in the United States. And of course the big cities get most of it.
How about our schools?
Absolutely in our schools. That's Muslim Students Association. All over. Next. This slide was put together by the Center for National Security, which is another little group, much smaller than ACT, but it works kind of the same way. And they put together the discovery of how actually the 4 sections of the Muslim Brotherhood are working in the United States. All of this started happening, it's happening every day around us. The first one was the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood that I just told you about. The second one that came in about 1971 was the Pakistani Muslim Brotherhood. You know those friends of ours, the Pakistanis? Establishing Jamaat-e-Islami. Jamaat-e-Islami, some of you may recognize as the Jamaat al-Fukra, which is the homegrown jihadists, the jihad camps that you may, it's back on the back table, so look before you go. Hamas came in, which is the Palestinian side, about 1998, and that, of course, CARE came along with them, who is, without a doubt, CARE's most notorious work comes from the lawfare side. It screws up U.S. business. It demands appeasement and accommodation for Islam that no other religion in the world would even think about asking for in the United States. Remember, everything is always about Islam to them, dominating. CARE was behind the unions that made demands at Tyson and Swift, the 6 flying imam scheme, the Muslims in the Minnesota airport demand for footpaths, and taxi drivers' refusal to pick up certain fares, which in this case were dogs and anybody carrying alcohol. They will go after you tooth and nail if you have a business, and they will bring you down if you will not agree. So far, I do not know of one time that CARE hasn't won against any business, and that's absolutely horrendous. And so, of course, the businesses, instead of being sued, they're giving in, and they're letting jobs go to Muslims, you name it. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on that. The last one that comes in, you just can't see it at all, but over in the top left corner there is the Somali Muslim Brotherhood came in. How many of you know about the Somalians? Al-Shabaab. Okay. How many of you heard about the pirates off the Somali coast? That's water jihad. They are absolutely fighting jihad over there in the way of piracy. And they've been doing that, not Somalis, but everybody in the Islamic world has. Who knows why we fought the Battle of Tripoli? From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli? Pirates. They were taking our men off the ships. This, you know, Jefferson had to go fight them. We've been fighting Islam for a long time. Now it's not. Now it's not politically correct to do it, but it certainly was then. The next sheet is very, very common. Next. Or maybe backwards. I don't know.
You want to go back?
I don't know.
Go back.
No? Okay, go forward. And then forward. Okay. This is entirely too tiny for you to see. But along with the Muslim Brotherhood coming in, they had a plan. How many of you heard of the, I'm sure you have, the Monster Mosque in New York City? Okay, that's one of their plans. It says right here, finance and direct massive mosque building programs in the United States. Locate and scale construction in a manner to intimidate and assert supremacy of Islam over traditional American religious identity. And they're very clear. This is their plan, and they're really close, by the way. They won't win. By the way, they won't win. I know this because we're not going to allow it, but we got to get rid of the president we have right now, who's helping them every inch of the way. Every single thing that you see acting out there has been planned, and it continues to be planned, and they continue to work the plan. All right, next one. One of the bigger objects of the Muslim Brotherhood is to get Muslim candidates, starts as candidates, elected to public office. The single most unsafe place we have, if you will, in the United States, is in our city councils. The Muslim American Task Force is a Muslim Brotherhood front. Its job is to place electable Muslims who belong to the Muslim Brotherhood in city councils. It doesn't matter how big, it doesn't matter how small. Get them in there. Why do you think it's so important to take the city councils?
Closest to us, but I don't know.
Well, it is our closest government. We'll think about what they control. Planning, zoning, police.
Put the mosque where they want to.
They can put a mosque wherever they want to, providing, of course, that they got everybody together in their city council. But I don't know of any city council that has said no to a mosque yet, successfully. The planning says, okay, you know, this is really super. We can have this mosque. We can zone it for anywhere we want, which could be right in the middle of your block of houses. Doesn't matter, as long as they want to build it. And of course they can control the local police. Now I'm not about to tell you, and I do not believe it for a second, that our police are in any way working with the Muslim Brotherhood. I refuse to believe that. I know that they're there to protect us. There may be a lot of weird stuff going on, but they aren't working with them. But they are in Dearborn. And why do you think they are in Dearborn?
It's always there.
Because the chief of police is a Muslim. He's Sharia compliant. The mayor is Sharia compliant. They kick out, they have twice now, I believe it's only twice, kicked out Christians from the Arab Fair in Dearborn, just based on the fact that they really didn't like them being there. That was it. There's no legality to what they did, but they did it anyway. And hopefully it's going to come back to bite them. The biggest problem with the mosque, can't see the sign. This is the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca. It's the largest, most holiest site in Islam. We can stop the building of mosques in the United States. We just have to understand under what way we stop them. I don't care what religion you are. You can absolutely worship a donut, and I don't care. And that's what we are in the United States. We're Americans. You have the right to believe what you want. You do not, however, have the right to ram that down anybody else's throat. The states maintain the right to restrict dangerous religious expression as they see fit. And this is our city councils. The federal government is forbidden to interfere, and the Constitution places no limits around what state governments may do to deal with religiously inspired threats to their security, peace, freedoms, and individual rights. The Muslim Brotherhood is all about stopping security, peace, freedoms, and individual rights. There are two books, you can barely see them, called The Modern Day Trojan Horse and The Mosque Exposed. These books are all about and very clearly state that the mosques in the United States are fortresses. They are not primarily places of religion. They are here to be little centers of government, little arsenals. In England, I know there are arsenals, they may not be here yet. And they are hotbeds of radicalism. How many of you heard the Peter King trials? Not trials, hearings, thank you. Peter King hearings, that followed any of that. He's proved pretty significantly that there's a whole lot of homegrown jihad and homegrown jihadist activity coming out. Remember that 81% I've already talked to you about on the survey in this year? 81%. And what that leads to, from a radicalized mosque, next picture, leads to this. Homegrown jihadists. More and more and more are appearing in our country, and our state particularly has a bad problem with them. Nidal Hassan managed to murder 13 people at Fort Hood. His, like, what didn't you just tell us? It's been reduced now to workplace violence?
Yep. Yeah.
Workplace violence.
No, way to go, Obama. Actually never was considered what it is. It was a jihadi attack. It was an act of war in the United States, and it came out of the Dar al-Hijra Mosque. He went to that, which is in Virginia, which was also led by an imam named al-Dasari, I'll get it in a minute, who we just killed. We finally took him out in Yemen, I believe, the United States forces, because he's an absolute radicalized. Dar al-Hijra Mosque is also turned out 3 of the 9/11 attackers. That's as radical as you can get, but we must allow it in this country because it's there. It's absolutely ridiculous that we have them here. The other 3, Texas, homegrown jihadists have been Khalid al-Dasari, so I must have said that name wrong, al-Lubbock, Hossein Smadi, who tried to take down the buildings in Dallas, and James Nasser Abdu, who recently, again, attacked Fort Hood. Fort Hood is a big...
right here in Ellis County.
Yeah, one of them did.
Those are Smotty.
Smadi lived down here? Okay.
3 miles from my house.
You can't go far with
3
this
miles
many.
from his house.
Can you hold your thought? I just really got to get through this because I know I'm holding all your interest, but still I don't want to grab it all. Okay. All right. I can talk about the Muslim Brotherhood. I can give you faces of homegrown jihadists. I can talk about how bad Sharia law is. But until you put faces to the enemy, it really doesn't mean much to you. So please, the next slide. I just put together, this is just some. This one, you just mentioned it, Fethullah Gulen, right there. He's the one who's running the Harmony schools, the Raindrop schools, the Gulen schools in Texas, and he really does need to be stopped. But that's another story. All of these people, and in case you, just so you don't miss it, check this one up here. That would be our president standing with the president of the Muslim Public Affairs Council, which is in California, and it's absolutely the organization that stopped the Los Angeles Police Department from surveying mosques, from looking at mosques to find out what's going on. Oh no, we couldn't have that. We can't have you looking at that. They're also the group that allowed, wrong word, yeah, it is the right word, that allows Muslim women not to be checked, full body scopes, just like the rest of us have to do at the airport. I ask you, why are we going through them? If they're just allowed to go through, well, theoretically, they're taken to a back room, and then somebody pats them down, and then they're free. I don't know if that happens.
We can't do racial profiling.
No, can't do racial profiling. It's not racial. There is nothing racist about Islam, period. Anyway, I'm going to talk about these three because they're kind of the crux of the point I want to make. This guy is Arif Alican. He's in the middle side right there. Arif was the LA deputy mayor who curtailed the LAPD monitoring the mosques. He called Hezbollah, all of you know what Hezbollah is? Okay. A liberation movement, and he's a member of the Muslim Public Affairs Council. Right in the middle, of his side there, is Kareem Shora. Kareem Shora is the past executive director of the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee. The ADC is pro-Hezbollah, anti-Israel, and governs the Islamic guidelines for the American Professional Journalist Society. In other words, they get to tell our journalists what those journalists get to say about them in the papers. Right. We always knew the fix was in. This little guy down here in the blue shirt, who isn't a little guy, actually, is Muhammad El-Biari. Muhammad is a Texas boy. Says he was born here, but he didn't get here until he was 6 or 7 from Egypt. He began with the MSA. He's now the president of the Freedom and Justice Center Foundation in Colleyville. He is the #1 Muslim Brotherhood leader in the state of Texas. His Freedom and Justice Foundation have maybe 20 to 25 board members. Of those, every single one has been identified as having ties to federally identified terrorist organizations, period. He says, oh no, not one of them are dirty. Every one of them are. He is also on Dalia Mogahed's president of the Countering Violent Extremist Counseling, Combating Violent Extremism Committee, which is set up in Washington through Barack Obama, of course. I'm not going to read you that. It's really not important. Okay, I want you to keep this in mind. This guy, Muhammad El-Biari, has come to 2 or 3, I'm sure 2, of my presentations. And the last one he stood up and he fought with me over it. And he flatly denied having anything to do whatsoever with Muslim Brotherhood. That's just ridiculous on the face of it. But he baldly states that. He's a very sly fellow. He's very personable, too, as a matter of fact. Okay, those are just some of the faces. They're all over. In every state, in every city, you've got real people who are up there. Now, the next slide, I call the wall of shame. These people are traitors to the United States of America. Every single one of them here should be removed. This is a wall of shame that we should not allow to continue to go. I am going to talk about only 4 of them. If you can, he's not even on my page. So take that. That's funny. Yeah, just so you can see as much of those as you possibly can. I'm only going to talk about these 4, but you probably all recognize Holder, Chris Christie, that's another fellow, you know what's her name. All of them are just, they just work hand in glove with the Islamists. And at the very least, they're collaborators. But I believe they're traitors. They can't be traitors until we name the enemy. We're not allowed to name the enemy. That keeps these people safe. They can't be traitors if we don't have an enemy. Okay, these 4. The first one, the bald-headed dude, is James Clapper. He's the Director of National Intelligence. He said that the Muslim Brotherhood is a loose conglomeration of largely secular, nonviolent organizations, not a real threat to anybody, and no connection to Al-Qaeda or any other nation. This is Director of Intelligence. Who put those words in his mouth? The Muslim Brotherhood did, because they're sitting at the sides of these people, giving them the information of what they can say. It's not just the journalists, it's also the government officials. Next to him, you certainly ought to know Napolitano, and I'm sure you've all got your own opinion of her. What?
She's sweet.
Oh, she's sweet. Next to her is Diane Sawyer, and I put her in because she's the perfect example of by their hands. She is a collaborator. She works with them. And the last one is John Brennan. He is the Department of Homeland Chief of Counterterrorism. Would you turn the page back to the one before it? Okay, stop there. He is largely responsible for appointing Alican, Shora, and Iliadari to the DHS Counterterrorism Advisory Board. You have the foxes in the henhouse. They are telling us how to run it. And by the way, I just remembered, Mohammed Iliadari just recently, like last month, took his security clearance from DHS and hacked in to the department, the Texas Homeland Security Department, and rooted around in it to find anybody that he thought was going to prove that Governor Perry was an Islamophobe. This is thievery. This is absolutely, he shouldn't even be walking around. Napolitano said, oh, I don't know him. She swore him in, for crying out loud. She knows him quite well. Lied to our first district, Louis Gohmert. Just lied to him on a House panel. Just said, oh, I don't know what's going on. I don't know any of this thing. That man is still free to walk around, and he should not be. For many reasons other than that, but certainly for that one. Okay, now I used to leave it here, and people would always get so upset because, you know, I've given you nothing but bad information, right? I mean, this is not an upper conversation I've had. So I put together the next slide. These are the world and American heroes. We have lots of people fighting. We have lots of people who know what they're doing. I am particularly fond, of course, this is Brigitte Gabriel, who is the founder of Act for America. And gives me my ability to go around and talk to all of you. This is Louis Gohmert. Yay for you, Louis Gohmert from Texas, because he is outstanding. We have Alan West. I don't know if you put that picture. I thoroughly expect Alan West will one day be President or Vice President of the United States. I really do. He's that good. Peter King, there's so many here. How many of you follow Robert Spencer and Pamela Geller's websites? If you don't, you should. He is certainly the leading expert on Islamic behavior, I think, in the world. That over there is one of the best people in the world alive today. That's Geert Wilders. He is a member of parliament in the Netherlands. He is set to be, I believe, with his party, going to lead the European Union probably in the next election. Not for sure. But what he did 5 years ago, or 7 or something like that, put out a movie called Fitna. And Fitna was all about how bad Islam is. That it's just a murderous organization. And he used their words and their explanations to explain it. And so he went under death threats right away. And for all these years, he's not been able to go home. He doesn't stay anywhere very often. But he was recently, well, for the last year, been on trial for hate speech. And had he lost, the lights would have gone out in Europe, as far as I'm concerned. and as far as most of the world is concerned, because the Islamists would have won. They are after our freedom of speech. It's the #1 issue they can't get around, so they must stop us. All right. To sum up, one picture. This is what, while you look at that, I'm going to read something. But this is what they want for us. They want us to be completely submitted to Islam. Today, there are members of the Muslim Brotherhood in the White House, in the Pentagons, in the war colleges, in the Department of Justice, in the Department of Defense, in the Department of Homeland Security, in the FBI and CIA and all branches of the military, in our schools and in our universities. The Muslim Brotherhood represents a weapon of mass destruction which has been exploded in our country. It must be stopped. We stop the Muslim Brotherhood of all branches, sizes, and shapes. We shut them down. We stop the radicalization that is going on in our country. We must stop it. You all can help. I believe that there are only 2 icons that I should see left on this map. Next, please. And that is this. I thank you very much for having listened and coming tonight. Don't forget the little, back there is my tin can for your donations, just if you have to leave. Okay.
How about just a few questions? I've got one right there.
Yeah, you had another
Just something I wanted to share. We would all say James Madison was a champion of freedom and individual freedom and freedom of religion.
We'd like to think so.
Yeah, father of our Constitution. I just want to share a quick, short couple of sentences. He wrote this, the amendment to the Virginia Declaration of Rights, May 29th, June 11th, 1776, addressing the issue of, can we forbid them to build mosques? That religion or the duty which we owe to our Creator and the manner of discharging it can be directed only by reason and conviction, not by force or violence, and therefore that all men are equally entitled to enjoy the free exercise of religion according to the dictates of conscience, unpunished and unrestrained by the magistrate, unless the preservation of equal liberty and the existence of the state are manifestly endangered. That's the man that the father of our Constitution wrote that.
Yes, and that's what we should be listening to today, not to them and having a scream about, oh, it's a religion, you can't shut us up.
No,
Well, you can't shut them up, we don't have to let them practice.
Another question right back here.
Hi, Dorrie.
Hi.
You've attended a lot of our Jewish events in the Republican Jewish Coalition.
Yes,
I've spoken
I
at
have.
Benjamin's, and I've heard you in the last 2 years speak at many of our events. And my only question to you is, I come back because I'm a Jewish girl, and I'm very much probably more stronger than you would ever feel, and these people. What ACT is a group, an organization, as a group, but it's an organization because there's a couple of more. These accomplishments, you know all these things that are happening. And we don't know all of these things, but what have you accomplished on withholder and with the security, Homeland Security, since we know all the things are happening, and you're a very big group because I follow you very closely. What is the accomplishment of your organization to take some of these people before the courts, before a holder, before you, is there anything, or is it just talking about it and that's about it?
What ACT primarily is,
Please explain to them because a lot of people probably don't
yeah, what we really are, ACT is a lobbying organization, in all truth, for lack of a better term. It is that. What Brigitte Gabriel does is get as much legislation in front of the U.S. House as she possibly can that has to do with this. We are very, very much behind the American law for American courts. And we did have 3 successes. Tennessee, Louisiana, and Arizona all now have American law for American courts. Tennessee's got another one. But essentially, and I think Brigitte, I'm not sure if she was behind this, but there is H.R. 973 in the U.S. House, which is exactly, it's ALAC. It's just the same thing. But, and I'm sure she's pushing it, and I know we got a little girl law through. It was the, I know what it was. It was the, you as an American author could not be tried in, say, a British court for writing a book against Islam or whatever. That has a name, I can't remember what it is, but Brigitte was very involved in getting that stopped. But technically it's a very slow business. We just keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. If any of you ever have an issue, I mean besides the normal issues, let's say that you know there's a Muslim Brotherhood organization working out of the local gas station or something, and you need a way to legally get them to stop doing whatever they're doing. This is just an idea. Give me a call. Send me an email, because that's the kind of thing we like to do on the ground. We are big enough now in Texas where I think we can start, and maybe not, but I'm hoping that we're getting to the point where we can have feet on the ground and actually do the protests, so that we can bring the word of why we are doing these protests to more people who just don't hear it otherwise if it's not on the news. But to answer your question as shortly as I can, we're working at it. We've had successes, but they're not major yet, but they're all good. Always a success is better than not. But we also haven't lost anything. I mean, keep that in mind too. Some of these things just haven't come to fruition yet. And it will. It will. Thanks to the Tea Party, by the way, with so many of your guys that showed up, and your guys, my guys too.
We got one more lady back here.
Okay.
Can you explain about the guy with the schools that, doesn't he get government funding for those Muslim
Yes,
schools?
the charter schools, the Fethullah Gulen charter schools. Literally, you're paying for the Harmony and the Raindrop schools and the Cosmos Foundation. I think you seem to know a great deal about it. So I am not an expert on the Gulen schools, because I figure I can't be an expert on everything. But there are several people, and if you're really interested in it too, I will send you their email addresses. Okay? As long as you take this form. One more question.
I have a question. I enjoyed this, and I'm from Portland, Oregon. Do you know if there's anything like this up there?
Oh yeah, acts all over the place. There isn't anybody who does what I'm doing. There may be other forms, but as far as I know, I'm the only one that does this kind of thing. But yeah, ACT is very active. As a matter of fact, one of our successes came out of Oregon for breaking down a school, not breaking down a school, but getting an Islamic teacher taken out of the schools or something. I don't remember exactly, but it was one of those. It was one of those successes.
Paul, one more question, and then we're going to put Dorrie back in the corner.
And ma'am, I only heard part of your comments, and I don't mean to take you out of context, but when we lionize these politicians,
When we lionize,
Peter King is one of the most liberal members of the Republican Party, one of the biggest advocates for gun control.
Yep.
Just recently introduced a bill to take our means of self-defense away within 1,000 yards of an elected official that would be impossible to comply with. And he has personally, and I've heard him make anti-Texas statements again and again and again. So he may be strong on one issue, and also you need to look at his IRA connections back when he was a little bit younger than that, but still in Congress.
you know, I think there are so few people in this world that are perfect. If they're doing what I want them to do,
Right.
I tend to, I'm honest, I tend to ignore the rest.
So that would be dishonest.
And that would, well, I don't think he would do that, but that's because he's now learned better. But you may be totally right. I'm saying, I always do this with politicians because I think I'm a realist. I balance the good against the bad. Are they doing more good than bad?
Ma'am, I hate to interrupt, but he's been consistently labeled as one of the most liberal members of the Republican Party.
I'm going to take your word for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't take away from what he's doing to stop this particular threat. But I agree. I don't want him to take away our arms either. I mean, so how do you balance? I just balance.
Thank you, Dorrie, for bringing this.
All right.
Y'all go back to the table.
Now remember that.
No, don't go back to the table till we're done. We still have a lot of stuff to tell you, so please stay seated. We're going to finish our business and then you can go talk to her. Keith, you're up.
Keith Glenna, finances.
Oh, this is oh, but it's still. Do you want it?
Good evening. We're just going to take a few minutes and talk about finances.
Could y'all
Have your attention,
we're talking
please.
about our money?
Have your attention, please.
Yeah, everybody, if you're a member of the Tea Party, please take a seat so you can hear about our finances. If not, please go out that door.
Good evening. This is very quick. This is just a real quick schedule to show you where our money's been going and where we've been getting it from. Virtually all our money comes from your donations. And we're coming into an election year, and we know this is a bad time of year for a lot of us. But we're trying to get enough money that we can do a lot more in the coming year. We're going to be coming to you in the next month or so with a schedule of priorities of what you want to do and what actions we can take, what we would like to do. But it's also going to take money. We buy constitutions and hand them out. We appear at different parades and things like that. And that all takes money. It also takes money to rent these buildings and the website that we've got and everything else we do. So whatever you can spare, we appreciate it. And if you have any questions about our finances and what we do with it, it's all right there. It's pretty minimal. For example, if we didn't get another dollar today, we'd be penniless by the end of January. So every dollar you give us goes to these activities and activities around the counties. So, anybody have any questions? I told you I'd be real short. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to talk about a Tea Party victory. Y'all are the Tea Party, and we've had two victories that I know, two big victories. Number one, as we got started, the vice chairman of the Tea Party in Ellis County resigned from the Tea Party and became the chairman of the Republican Party of Ellis County. And what he has done, he has let things get out of committee that in times past may or may not have. Okay, what about a recent victory this week? I can tell you about one that happened on Tuesday night. You need to hear about this. We had been trying to censure members out of our county commissioner's court for raising our taxes a couple months ago. And this thing got delayed and delayed and delayed. You know how politics run. But finally, this week, we finally got a vote on this thing. And I know that we had 9, maybe 10 Tea Party members that have become precinct chairs. And we had a vote on whether to censure these people. We holler about Washington, you know, spending too much money, and we do the same thing about Austin. But we don't do it about Ellis County in Texas. And this is over a 5% tax increase. We censured them by a vote of 14-7, and most of those votes were formerly or are currently Tea Party people. So victory, that's a big victory. Okay, that's all I have right now. We're going to have more victories.
Wait. What does that mean?
Smack them on the hand.
That means that they've got a stigma now. They, you know.
Will that be publicized?
Oh yes, it's
Been in the Anna Center. It was in the Anna
Well,
Center.
and also today,
But not this.
I didn't see it in the Wasatch paper, but
no, it was in the Ennis, it wasn't in his paper, but today, Commissioner Dodson and County Judge Carol Bush said it didn't change a thing. They didn't regret the tax increase. They would do it again if they had to do it today. So they just do not get it.
And they just don't care.
Yes, in the Ennis paper.
I'd like to point out to those in attendance that the issue with getting to the point of having the vote was having sufficiently active precinct members that you could have a quorum and actually have an official vote.
We're fixing to talk about that.
So if you are interested in participating and actually playing the game, show up as a precinct chair. It's filing period.
Well, we're fixing to talk about that. We have a lot of different precincts, and there's a map out there on the wall. But the filing date for that is this Thursday. You have to file Dan Davis will be in this office all day on Thursday. You get the form, he can notarize it. But your voting precinct could change. The Supreme Court is now looking at the redistricted map that a federal judge said was adequate. Well, it changes the dynamics of the congressional district for Ellis County, CD6. So the Supreme Court has put a stay on that map, and so our voting district, our precinct voting districts could change as well. So we really won't know. The Supreme Court is not going to look at this case until January the 9th, so at earliest, we won't get a ruling until the end of January. So it also looks like our, what do you call the early voting thing?
Primary election.
Yeah, that was the word I was looking for. Our primary will not be until May 22nd.
Possibly.